welcome to game number 1 in this best of 3 in between Beastyqt and the Mista. This is the quarterfinals of the $3,000 EGC TV Winter Series. Down south, we will have Beastyqt playing as the Rus in blue. Up north, we will have the Mista playing as the Red English. The civilization bans were Mongols by Beasty and Delhi by the Mista, so I expect Danube River to be played at some point in this series. And the global bans are there, so neither of those players will be able to pick those civilizations. This also means that Rus are accessible for both, but we'll only have Beastyqt picking that for himself in game number 1 in blue, and the Mista is going to be playing in English. Looking at the bases real quickly, from Beasty, you're going to have a pretty exposed gold mine, but it's not the end of the world with the Rus. Stone mine isn't spectacular either, so if this was any other civilization, I think he would be very disappointed with this map. But with the Rus, this is actually a pretty nice map for him, especially knowing Beasty's playstyle, being a player that loves to turtle, loves to play slow games. So the fact that he can wall off the left side is quite important. We have a scuffle between scouts over here, looking for hunts, as Mista is trying to deny some of those deer. As things stand, Beasty is sitting at 60 bounty, and he's also being trailed by a wolf. Gets the first shot on that deer, and he gets the second one as well. So despite the fact that Mista was able to land a couple of hits on that scout, ultimately, Beasty gets the majority of that patch of huntables, and he's also being trailed by a wolf over here. He already has the hunting cabin up, and he's out with 3 scouts. This hunting cabin is also a very nice one, giving you 20 gold per minute as a base gold count. So that's something that you don't have to be disappointed about either. For the Mista, his gold mine is quite a bit exposed on the right side. He's got a wood line to the north of his base and one to the left. But the southern part of his base is just wide open, and that's pretty problematic when you're up against the Rus over here. 3 wolves being aggroed here by Beasty, that is just an absolute feast of gold. That's 75 gold following his scout over there, another 25 over here, and that should push him very close that tier 2 bounty. He's even killing the huntables here, and in general, despite the fact that Mista added a second scout here in Dark Age and he managed to aggro 1 wolf, the amount of hunt that he could take down with those was minimal. So you see, quite a lot of gold is falling into the hands of Beasty over here. Mista is trying to get some shots on that wolf, so now it comes down to whoever lands that final shot, and that should be Beasty. It's free HP, so he needs to take a shot now, but it looks like he will just run away. If you do the math on that, he could have seen that with 2 shots coming from each of the scouts, it should have been his last shot. So Beasty could have taken the 25 gold, but he did not end up doing so. There's still a patch of 7 deer to the left of his base, so that's going to be 70 gold for him. And 2 more wolves being cleaned up is going to be 25 each. So he's going to be at a nice and comfy 320-ish level if he finishes off that patch of deer, and that is nothing to be ashamed of. Getting to 350 even, and that is just spectacular. In a 1v1 setup, you are aiming for 250, anything above is just exceptional, especially once you get to that 350, 360 level, because that's where you can save up 1 more ticket on that Golden Gate. Because if you do the math on the cost of Feudal Age, Castle Age, and Professional Scouts, and you subtract the amount of gold record that you get from the hunting cabin in this build order, you basically get that at 370 bounty is the level where you won't have to make 1 additional Golden Gate transaction, so you will see that for Beasty at some point. He's rushing up the Golden Gate with 4. Other side, you have the Council Hall coming in with 3, and you see, Mista is not going to play aggressive over here. He's going to play what seems to be a 2-town center build at this point. So, looking at him, he's just now sending out villagers to stone, or this could be something completely different, and if it is, I'm going to be very happy. Because there was a strategy, I think Beasty mentioned it probably a couple of times, which is a team game tournament. There was a strategy implemented by a Chinese team which utilized English. Basically, the idea was pretty simple. You have a longbowman player that sends a villager forward, makes a section of stone walls, deletes a section, and then those longbows will be on top of the walls because they can walk up from the deleted section. And funnily enough, when I woke up this morning, I was like, that could be an interesting idea to stop the Rus. I wonder if everyone will ever try that. So that might be the idea here for Mista, because his stone count isn't spectacular, so this is not enough for a second town center. He's only mining with 2. Which really makes me wonder if he wants to make that happen, because that could be one cheesy way of playing things. Especially because the Rus player won't have a lot of army out here, so what you would gain with that is that you have like a stone wall section in here, and longbows on top. So the longbows will get damage reduction from arrow fire. They will get the range increase, and that's going to make them very effective when it comes to picking off villagers. I think you can even do stuff like have the longbows up there and just snipe the villagers underneath the town center. So curious to see if that's the game plan here for Mista. Meanwhile, for the time being, we have professional scouts coming in for Beasty. He's not really sweating this one too much. He already has pro scouts in, and he's going to swoop up the hunt of the opponent, as you would expect. And for Beasty, there is the villager. He's going for it. He's going for it. So usually the way that you start off this build is by going for a defense or for a tower. Because with a tower, you would expand your network of castles bonus. So you would even have the attack rate boost. But honestly, I think against the Rus, it makes sense to just start off with a stone wall anyways. Now, Beast is going to spot that, but I'm not sure if he has ever seen this strategy, so we'll have to see how he reacts to that one. There's a defensive tower on the right side of those lumberjacks, and you see Beast's reaction is going to be a stable, but this is why this build is so cheeky and so fun. It's because if you make this build with the stone walls up front, the knights won't be able to hit your archers because your archers are on top of walls. So there is some fun stuff with that build. We'll have to see if Mista is going for it. Alternative is that he goes for arrow slits on those towers, but I would love to see this stone wall tower crawl coming to a conclusion here. For now, Mista is going to have a couple more longbows out here. Tower is going up as we speak. The lumberjacks were moved away from the trees. So one thing that you could already accomplish here for Mista is slow down that fast castle a tiny bit. You see, Beasty is going to have to relocate all the lumberjacks to the left side. Looking at the resource banks real quickly, Beasty is at 500 food, still lacking a ton of gold, of course. So he's going to have to start utilizing that golden gate. And it looks like it's going to be arrow slits. I'm disappointed. I think the stone wall crawl is a little more exciting as a build, and I think it has a little more potential compared to the outpost. The fun thing about this build, or that build, is that it's very difficult to destroy those stone walls, so the knights can't do anything against it. The drawback of these towers is that the knights can still burn them down, or even the scouts can, so it's something that you have to be careful about. It's still a nice push by Mista, but I kind of feel like there could have been a better use of that stone out there. He's got an arrow slits now on that tower, so it's going to harass the lumberjacks from this side. There's a second tower coming up as well, but Beasty already relocated his lumberjacks, so at this point, he's just waiting for the resources to pile up. He already has 4 tickets, so he can sell 400 resources for gold. He actually... Wait a minute, what did he just do? They made 2 transactions. He sold some food, and did he buy some wood? Seems like it, because his gold count didn't increase by 300, only by just 150. So it makes me wonder if he sold some and then bought some else. Still, his castle age is going to be slowed down, and as things stand, the Mista is not giving up on this one. There is going to be the other arrow slits upgrade coming in for the Mista out there, as longbows now swoop in, and this is where things are getting a little more problematic for Beasty, because suddenly, with that forest being harassed as well, his wood lines are going to be denied. And the other thing that we haven't talked about yet is that horse archers, especially at the beginning of the castle age when you don't have a lot of them, will die to mass foot archers. So this is looking pretty concerning at this point for Beasty if he just wants to go for that horse archer play. Now he's gonna play knights for the time being, but his knight numbers aren't spectacular right now. And if the Mista spots that, he's gonna be able to mix in a couple of spearmen. There is already barracks coming out, and with the hardened spearmen upgrade being freely given for the English, Mista doesn't even have to research that. He already has hardened spearmen out. Looks like the knights are now charging in. The tower will be completed just in time. The villagers are not jumping into the tower up until now. They will get in there. Only 3 knights on the battlefield, and I feel like if you are the Mista, you don't want to retreat here. You want to run around that tower, because tower fire can help you a lot. I think he's running towards that spearman, but I think he could have took a fight a little closer to that tower, because now he's giving up on that network of castles bonus. Nice micro by Beasty trying to pull away the weak knights, and it looks like Mista has overestimated the chances of his push here. Wasn't really expecting those knights. Nice move from Beasty to do quite a lot of damage to those forces, and that's going to relieve the pressure from the base of the blue player, Beasty, for quite a time. You see, there is a ton of wood in the bank for Beasty, so he can start selling that for Castle Age. And honestly, Given the fact that his opponent is going heavy on the archer plus spearman department, men-at-arms will be the appropriate choice out there. You see, Mista is still trying to crawl up with some towers, but Beasty at this point, he has safe wood lines. It's not going to last very long, but he can buy himself some time, and that's exactly what he needs to do. On the right side, he could think about trying to torch down those towers, because even though there is arrow slits on them, a couple of scouts and knights being pulled could have been able to potentially burn those down. Looks like the second tower is coming up here for Mista that might be within range of those lumberjacks, and the third tower is also being placed by Mista, so he's going super aggro over here, and as things stand, because Beastie is spending his gold on knights, he's not going into Castle Age. You see, he has to start selling food and wood to get the knights going, because his gold mine is terrible, and this is what I was referring to. These gold mines and stone mines are terrible for Beastie. So, unless he goes for a fast castle build, those will be problematic. And now, with the fast castle not coming in and he's not going for horse archers, that gold and stone being exposed is quite problematic at this point for Beastie. Down south, he's sneaking out a couple of villagers all the way to the right side because he's running out of trees to chop as well. 3 towers now denying those wood lines, and honestly, I love the resilience of Mista going for that tower rush. He's not giving up with 1, 2, 3 towers, he's up at 5, and now taking these down is gonna be a bit of a challenge over here because now Beast is struggling for resources. He doesn't have wood, he doesn't have gold or stone to work with. The only thing that he has is food, and that's going to run out at some point. You see, he's ferrying in the deer, in fact, to the hunting cabin, not even a town center, because he knows that those towers are harassing the town center even. So there are a lot of problems over here for Beastie right now. A couple of knights are roaming the map, trying to find some targets to kill. As things stand, the Mista's food eco is mostly in farming, and his base is somewhat exposed to raids. But there isn't really a ton of forces out there for Beastie, so I don't think that he has to be worried about that one that much. On the right side, looks like Beastie is going to find a gold mine for himself. The question is whether or not Mista knows about it, and the answer is yes. So, not only do those towers give you a ton of firepower and map control, they also give you a lot of vision, and you see, Mista is even taking some of this stone mine over here, which will help getting those arrow slits emplacements on towers. Beastie, I think he could justify trying to pull villagers to take down a tower. The question is which? Because if you take down this tower will still deny the gold miners. Or the lumberjacks, excuse me. You can't really take 2 towers down with just a bunch of villagers. That's way too much firepower. So it's a little difficult right now to choose a target, because you could easily pull 20 villagers and take down a tower in 5 seconds, relieve the pressure. As things stand, the longbows come in on the right side, and Beastie is looking to try and save these villagers, but there's just nowhere to go. The Mista knows exactly that those villagers are out there. He's got vision, and he's going to start killing them. That's going to be 6 dead villagers. And currently, it looks like the Rus player, who's floating 1300 food and is rushing up Castle Age, won't have a massive Castle Age advantage over the Mista, because the Mista is getting up to Castle Age in the foreseeable future. Now we see the cavalry being pulled to finally clean that tower up. Fortifications coming in just now for the Mista, but that's going to be a little too late. Although, with the spearmen and archers arriving, he might be able to save that tower. Now the tower is on fire though, so I think you even want to cancel the fortifications, because the tower would burn down anyway, so there's no point getting that fortified upgrade on it. Oh, that's the worst possible scenario for Mista. Fortification coming in the very moment the tower burns down. That's the most disastrous situation for him. Beastie right now trying to keep track of that army that's ready to counterattack. Couple of horsemen out here for Beastie as well. And in the meanwhile, the Mista age up to Castle Age with the King's Palace. So, with the King's Palace going, he's gonna have 2 town centers as opposed to 1. On the other side, Beastie, of course, is gonna have the Abbey of the Trinity, so he can start getting warrior monks out and start getting those relics. But even that is gonna be a little challenging, because if you look at the relic spawns, those aren't spectacular for him. One on the left side should be easily accessible, one on the south is nice. But the other 3 are quite far out there, so it's very likely that Mista is gonna be able to deny those. This tower, once again, is getting the fortification just before it would get destroyed. At least you're going to lose that tower before that upgrade finishes, so there is some positives out there. You really want to fortify these towers right now. I kind of feel like Mista is only fortifying those towers that he really needs to. And I think he should prematurely or preemptively go for those fortifications, so it's a little more difficult for the opponent to take those down. Longbow's now moving in, trying to intercept that warrior monk. The villager is likely going down, but I think the warrior monk should survive. Indeed, that's the case. Now cavalry ready to counterattack over here. There is a sneaky scout on the right side by Beasty, and that's going to spot any unit movement here from Mista. Mista might actually bump into that scout and stab it down. Oh yeah, he's going to find it. Longbow's getting some shots in, but the scout gets away. Spearmen actually do brace, so they take a decent fight over here given the circumstances. Paling's also deployed for those longbowmen, so they do their best here to hold off this army and wait for reinforcements to arrive. Unfortunately, by the time the reinforcements arrive, most of those are taken down, but scouts, horsemen fell here for Beasties, so the value is still there for Mista. And for a player that is already ahead by no less than 13 villagers, he has to be happy with that fight. Another fight that could be pretty decent for him, gets a couple of nice hits on those knights and even some on the horseman, so has to be happy with this fight as well, especially with the knight for him coming in as well. Spearmen, longbows, and knights on the way. Beastie is grabbing relic number 2, but the lack of map control could result in him losing relic number 3, 4, and 5, so he could only have 2 relics, which I think for an English player against a Rus player is completely acceptable. Fortifications now coming in for this outpost, and I think the next step for Beastie is going to be trying to get some siege weapons on the battlefield. A couple of cavalry units here could try to get some raids going inside the Mista's base, but many of them are heavily damaged, and you see the blacksmith is just now coming in for Mista. That's a pretty late blacksmith given how aggressive he was in Feudal Age, but he definitely wants to get that siege upgrade. Cavalry now swooping in to get some raiding done on the lumberjacks. Spearmen converging to defend against this one. For now, not a huge army and heavy losses of HP on those cavalry units, so I don't think it's a massive force to be reckoned with right now. And with the spearmen coming back, it's going to be a miracle if Mista loses more than 2 villagers over here to this raid, and indeed Beast is going to call it off for the time being. Veteran longbows are in, and on the blacksmith we're not getting a single upgrade just yet for the Mista. He still has a ton of stone, and now you see these fortified outposts are doing work. Beastie going with his casual playstyle of walls. This is something that he loves to do, although with the Rus, he won't have access to stone walls, so he won't be able to crawl forward with stone walls. He can only play with palisades. The cavalry is moving out to the right side. They actually managed to get the spearmen out of position a tiny bit. If you have 1 or 2 spears back at home, though, that should be enough to deal with this one. Meanwhile, for Beastie, it looks like he's grabbing the attack upgrade first, so no siege coming in just yet. Villagers will retreat to the town center, but as the spearmen are chasing out the cavalry, there is not going to be a single villager killed. Currently, the population is 64 villagers for Mista, 34 army, for a combined 98, as opposed to only 60 population, only 36 villagers for Mista, so minimal villager count compared to his opponent. But he's got some mangonels, and that's always something that the English have to be careful about. A couple of good mangonel shots could easily wipe out the entire army of longbowmen. Not necessarily the best fight ever either for Mista. Getting quite a lot of free hits on his knights by those knights and horsemen. But you see the intentions of Mista. He wants to get some knights on the battlefield as well to snipe potential siege weapons. Behind this one, the lack of map control is still haunting Beastie to a certain extent. In fact, his gold mines are very open, and you see this is something that Mista is going to exploit. That is going to be 1 dead villager, a 2nd dead villager, and the reaction is a little too slow from Beastie over here. 3, 4, very slow reaction from Beastie over here. Finally jumps into the tower, but he's going to lose 4, potentially 5 villagers to this aggression. Only 2 knights, that's a great value. And Beastie once again is back to 35 villagers. His opponent is sitting at 70, so 2 to 1 is the villager count now. And I feel like now, Mista can afford to play this game slowly. You already see a 2nd outpost fortified over here as well. So this position allows Mista to just deny this wood line for a long time. And then at some point his opponent is going to have to make a move because he's starting to deplete these forests out here. Another knight swoops in. This one is going to get taken down by 3 mangonels, carefully positioned in a triangular shape. But ultimately, this just tells Mista that he's up against a lot of mangonels, so he is going to have to react to that one. Wouldn't be surprised to see mangonels crawling up and trying to destroy those towers, but those are fortified, so you got to be careful with that. Still, at this point, Mista is playing this one super slow, super safe. He knows exactly that he's ahead by dozens of villagers. Why sweat this one? Why risk anything when you can just have a massive economy advantage? Knights might try to get some nice hits on those mangonels, and you see Beasty is coming back. He knows exactly those knights are there, but instead Mista just wants to get some villager kills once again. Another one goes down, so once again Beasty is the one losing villagers, and Mista's eco is pretty much untouched. These cavalry units are still harassing him from behind, but that's basically it. As things stand, the map control is mostly in the hands of Mista, who is adding more and more heavy cavalry here. Longbows are still out there, but now you see 3 stables, 4 stables even, worth of knight production, as this cavalry force also gets cleaned up. So now Mista can focus all his efforts on this side. You gotta love the tower on the right side. That's going to give vision to the Mista. Once again, towers will slowly be taken down. Behind this one, let's talk about the relic situation, because that's free for Beasty. He managed to snag the relic from the far right side over here. Was initially right next to this cart over here. So I feel like Mista needs to collect those relics before Beasty does, because you still don't want to give 5 relics to the Rus player over here, despite the fact that you have the villager advantage. Now you're talking about 4 mangonels over here. The knights are coming out. So, as things stand, Mista wants to go heavy on the knights department. So does Beasty, but this is actually something that helps Beasty, because knight versus knights, the Rus knights will be a lot better. And you see, Beasty is confident he can grab some additional relics, because as things stand, he's building a monastery, which is a sign that he wants to find a place for relic number 4 and 5. And that's exactly what's happening. This bad boy over here with 3 HP surviving yoinks the relic from in front of those longbowmen. So, as I said, Mista needs to collect those relics before Beasty does, because Beasty is gonna be sitting at a convenient 4 relic position, which is not something that you would expect for a player that has minimal map control. The warrior monk is gonna pop a conversion to disengage the knights from the mangonels. As things stand, on the right side, Beasty's forces are getting cleaned up by spearmen and knights. We also have a tower up here with a spring golden placement coming in for the Mista for vision. There is also a mining camp here, but that's basically it. Mista's push here stalled out a tiny bit. Now looking at his resource bank, he's getting close to Imperial, whereas his opponent is very far from there, but... Nope. 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 The attempt was very nice, and that's something that you can always do when you have a villager deficit position, because the easiest way to kill 20 villagers from the opponent is to convert them, because he's going to lose them anyways, and you're going to get those. So, I value the effort here from Beasty, but the conversion just takes too much time. The idea was great, and it definitely disrupted Mista a tiny bit, but ultimately the conversion failed. You still want to collect those relics though for Mista, because as I said, at some point you're gonna have Beasty come in and he's going to take the 5th one, and one way to let Beasty back in this game for Mista would be to just let them have 5 relics, because despite the fact that we are looking at 43 as opposed to 96 villagers, 5 relics is no joke. Looks like the knights are coming in from the north. They're looking to get some damage done on those berry villagers, who will be met by the knights of Beasty. Beasty hasn't gotten the Boyar's Fortitude upgrade just yet, which, as we haven't mentioned before, is an upgrade that also affects the knights. So, while that upgrade is mostly known to affect the cav archers, they also affect the knights. So, that's the reason why the Rus knights will be better than the English knights over here. But the Berkshire Palace is coming in for the Mista. Obviously, he has a way better eco. And with the English, you can really justify trying to nail a better Imperial Age timing than your opponent, because the sooner you get up, the sooner you will get your better food eco. And of course, the sooner you get your enclosures technology. So there's a massive economy power spike with the English once you get into Imperial Age. Springolds are now coming out from Mista to battle those mangonels. Of course, once you get to Imp, you can get the Roller Shutter Triggers upgrade as well for yourself. Technically, the English also have access to the Shattering Projectiles upgrade, which is something that would affect your trebuchets, and it's unique to the English, but it's rarely seen simply because trebuchets are sort of unused. It's also an Imperial Age technology, and by the time you get to Imp, you're using bombards out there. Knights are now coming in to the south. They're probably looking to blast their way through these walls over here, so I would expect Beastyqt to try and meet that on the battlefield. But of course, once Mista gets to Imperial, he can get the Elite Knight upgrade, and that's going to give him a nice power spike over the opponent. Looking at the resource bank of Beasty for a moment, he's not insanely far away from Imperial Age, especially if he uses the Golden Gate a tiny bit. He could sell 400 wood and get himself 600 gold in a matter of seconds, so he's really not far away. But obviously, the Mista is gonna have the head start in that department, and Beasty actually yoinks the 5th relic for himself. This, I think, is a mistake from Mista. Obviously, he doesn't need to rush the relics, but 25 minutes into the game, he has been in castle for a long time, hasn't really contested any of those relics. Ultimately, all 5 will fall into the hands of Beasty. Now Mista comes in the cavalry, and you could see armor-clad upgrade coming in alongside men-at-arms. So he wants to switch into Imperial Age men-at-arms here from the English. Makes some sense that extra armor helps quite a lot. And now longbows are moving in from the left side. Beasty's got some walls up here, so they won't be able to do that much, as the knights will just clash on the right side. This is going to be a rather even trade of armies, although with the mangonel support, Beasty could swing it in his favor. There is not a single warrior monk to trigger the Saint's Blessing, and it looks like Mista is going to disengage. He's in Imperial with the Berkshire Palace, and let's see what upgrades he's grabbing. Elite Men-at-Arms not coming in just yet, and for Elite Knight, he's also not coming in with Elite Knight either. Longbow's now running past the tower over here. Will take quite a lot of losses, but they will be able to take down a few villagers over here. Unsure if this is worth it though for Mista. I'm not gonna lie, Beasty having a second town center over here should be a worrisome sight for the Mista, because one thing that Mista wasn't really able to do for the last 10-15 minutes is just push the base of Beasty. He's building on that already existing villager lead, but that's basically it. And you can't let Beasty reboom here, because remember, Beasty is sitting on 5 relics, so I feel like there is a sense of urgency here for the Mista. He could potentially think about trading off his knights at this point, although I think he's waiting for what could be an elite upgrade. Now he's crawling up to the gold mine though, and his army numbers are still looking way better. 186 population for Mista, 93 only for Beasty. So while this defense looks promising for Beasty, the cold, harsh reality is that he just doesn't have the time to get back in this game. Attack notifications going off everywhere. Longbows are being sacrificed to kill a couple of villagers. At this point, you see the towers are being completely ignored by Mista's forces. He's just coming in with the men-at-arms. The knights will trade off against each other over here. They're pretty much trapped in here, so Mista might need to fight. And Mista popping an upgrade that we rarely see from players for whatever reason. Network of Citadels. So now you see, it still says Network of Castles bonus, but you could see the notification that it went to Network of Citadels, which means that now you have a 50% increased attack speed for your longbowman. Just look at that longbowman fire, and you didn't even get the volley upgrade on it. So with that tower up there, Network of Citadels, this is a very strong forward position to be in for Mista. And even though Springolds are absolutely terrible against buildings nowadays, they will still be able to help out taking that tower down and denying a lot of gold from Beasty. There's also a couple of infantry units coming down south here trying to get some raiding going. Mangonels should have no trouble dealing with them for the time being. At this point, it is 73 army versus 47. Just for reference, there is a combined 89 population for Beasty, and his opponent has a 69 sized army. Very nice. Also, the aggressive forward farming coming in here for the Mista, getting a couple more barracks on the battlefield. He already has enclosures, so his gold trickle is also much nicer. In general, his economy is way better, so at this point, the chances of Beasty are just minimal. I think he was set back way too much. Those Springolds do have 12 range, so they will have no trouble sniping down these Castle Age Springolds that only have 10. And of course, those men-at-arms having no less than 9 million 9 ranged armor obviously absorb a lot of arrow fire. Now the Mangonels do quite well against those infantry units, but once you lose the Mangonels to the Springolds, things are gonna get troublesome. The only thing I'm really missing for Mista is a couple of cannon. 2 or 3 cannons would destroy all these buildings in a matter of seconds, and it's not like Beasty can do much against them, because he would be outranged by your Springolds if you're Mista, so I kind of feel like 2 free bombards would have already destroyed these buildings. Looks like Mista is not going to play with Siege though. Instead, he's crawling up with his Springolds, trying to snipe down the Mangonels. You see, he's prioritizing those over the opponent's Springolds. He wants to make sure the Mangonels are gone, because then his infantry can just slaughter whatever is left of the forces of Beasty over here. Beasty pulling all his forces, and I really feel like Mista needs to have one big push happen here, because he's been trickling in units left and right, and I've been disliking that for a long time. Because while it definitely is grinding down Beasty, it's not like one decisive push. I think Mista would benefit a lot more from just regrouping and adding free cannon, just decimating the base of the opponent. Instead, he's splitting up his forces. I think it's still going to work simply because his lead is big enough, but trickling in units like this is not necessarily something that you like to do a lot. In the end, Mista is at 150 population still, his opponent is at 69, and slowly but surely the numbers are just disappearing for Beasty. Beasty's got 29 eco only. His army is still fairly sizable, numbering 38, and he's got 420 as the bounty, but ultimately, when this army gets cleaned up, there is limited to no chance for Beasty to replenish those. He has 2 town centers, but even with that, it would take like 10 minutes to replenish those villagers. And behind this one, Mista's got ultimate map control. A keep is coming in as well by Mista over here to protect his base. This is also going to give him the network of Citadels bonus around here, so that will affect the Spearman as well. And as that keep goes up, Beasty taps out. Mista, playing with the English against the Rus, going for a super aggressive tower rush over here, edges out a victory, mostly built on that early lead because that early lead was considerable. So this is where Mista leads, or Mista starts leading in villager count like crazy. He reaches Castle Age not far behind his opponent, which is already pretty impressive. Part of the reason why is because he was able to deny a lot of resources from his opponent. And then 2 town centers as opposed to 1, and of course a ton of pressure in Beasty's base. So you see, Beasty was barely increasing in villager count. Really the first time where Beasty starts increasing in villager numbers is at 24 minutes, but by that time his opponent is about to reach Imperial. So really, Beasty was never able to build up his economy. He capped at like 50-something villagers. Indeed, 63 villagers maximum as opposed to 115. Way better economy for